Welcome to This Week in Pulling, the show that brings you all the action from the world of tractor and truck pulling. I'm Dan Mayer, joined by Jeremy and Miles Krieger, and each week we'll dive into the latest highlights, breaking news, and behind-the-scenes stories from the sport we all love. From upcoming events, standout performances, and the rich history that shaped pulling into what it is today, we've got you covered. So buckle up, This Week in Pulling starts now.
Well, welcome back. This Week in Pulling, episode 29. Guys, what's going on?
How are you? Good evening, everybody. Good to see you again. And I know we had a couple of things going on last week, so lots of good stuff to talk about. But I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Doing well. Miles?
I'm not complaining at all, guys. It's the last day of the month. And, we're getting ready to go in October here, and it'll be a busy time, no question about it. So everything we have kicking off and running, you still got pulls and still have things coming your way. And I am in the trenches of the final meets of cross-country season and soccer ball games with my boy and travel softball. So it's this weekend will be a very busy weekend across Indiana for us.
Yeah, can't beat this weather. We are getting the now. Do they normally have like an Indian summer? Is that like normal around these parts? Is it okay? I know back in New York. I mean, beginning of October, you could have snow, you could have nice weather, and then they call it like you get like an Indian summer kind of deal for a couple of weeks. But I wasn't sure if that was because it's pretty much been 90 here since June, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we had a fairly mild August, like in comparison. Like July was pretty crazy, but it wasn't as bad in August. But September so far has been pretty hot, and it's sort of shows no signs of stopping, really. But I don't know. At least we finally got some rain. We really needed it here.
Yeah, we were pretty dry here too, and we got quite a bit there for a couple of days. And really, when you think about it, I don't think we've had weather affect much on the pulling side since I want to say Fort Recovery would have probably been the last.
You better knock on something. Your season isn't done yet, so don't jinx it.
Well, we got about a month to go, and Woodbury, Tennessee, last weekend, guys, they actually got the event in with Mother Nature gave them a break.
That's awesome. They deserved one. They've been kind of wet for I don't know how many of the last few years, and I really like what they do with that pull, and I'm glad the Fosters were finally able to get one in that wasn't threatened by Mother Nature for sure. How was the show?
Show was excellent. As far as turnout for competitors was great. The crowd came out in groves. They raised a lot of money for the FFA groups out there, and of course the FFA kids were out there, and they sell everything out there as far as everything from popcorn, cotton candy, all that stuff. They that goes to all the different groups and in the schools and stuff, and they know they raised quite a bit of money for their FFA trips that they go on to the nationals and stuff like that. And they have a trip to the farm machinery show as well. So they, all that goes into that, and they did very well here, and it was great to see. I mean, they literally, I think we were pulling two-wheel drives, which was a second class, and the two-wheelers, they kind of line them up around the backside of the north side of the grounds there, where the scales are, and actually had trouble getting through there because there were so many people, trying to get to seats, and still, I mean, that was a good hour into the show. And people were still, we were telling them on the north side there was, a little bit of room there to go find a place to sit. And, it was, can't ask for anything better than that. So they, Wesley was very happy with the turnout from, like I say, both spectators and pullers, and what a great show they put on. The pullers really put on a great show. I think we had 4 classes, and then we had the 2 light mods there to shoot out there that night. And yeah, it was just a great show. And I think we started off, we had 13 light supers, and guys, it was almost like a Grand National light super stock class. I mean, it was pretty impressive. We had the two-wheel drives. We had 14 of those. they ran a 5.0 pro stock class.
Now, did I see Tim Kane put a 5.0 on go down there?
Yep. So Chris was there. Tim was not. And but Chris unfortunately left with parts on the ground for both tractors. So that was, I didn't want to make that call that night, but they had,
Ouch.
wasn't too bent out of shape about it. They said that's the end of the season, but it was a tough night for the Kane tractors. And
they threw rods in both of them, window blocks.
Yep. Yeah. If you've seen the one
it was
replay,
his boy's first time, right?
Yeah, the boy ran the Aces Wild tractor and ended up, at the end of the track, put parts and pieces on the track. And then Tim's tractor, Chris doing the driving at the starting line. I don't know if he split the oil pan, but he shot oil. Shane Hunt was running the starting line camera down there, and Shane was literally covered from top to bottom with oil.
Wow.
He just happened to be out that side on the right side. And it kind of reminds me, I think John Belfance had done that a couple of years ago, maybe down in Benson. We saw where the out the side there, but I don't think it was, it was literally a stream. If you go back and look at it, it's literally a stream of oil. And that was, Pro Farm guys around the area that come out and run with the class, and then finished out the night with the we had the light limited supers were there, and then they ran like a farm stock class at the end of the night, and then they stuck the modified, the light mod shootout in between the show, so it was like after the two-wheelers. And Wayne Bunnage ended up his new tractor, very impressive. He ended up winning against Chase, ran the tag team there, and they put on a real nice show. Their little exhibition runs. And have you guys had the chance to see Wayne's new tractor? Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think
I've seen videos and pictures, and I know it was a former Benedict tractor that he, he's basically took his two mini rod engines that he had, put them on, and made his way into this class. And it seems like it's been a really awesome fit. I know he nearly won the ITPA points. I think if you were to go back and look, he went into the state fair with a shot to win the ITPA points in the mod class. And then he's run several hooks on the other side of the river with the outlaw folks as well, and done pretty well out there. So it's been a good fit for him for sure.
Yeah, he had a lot of good things. Had the chance to talk to him there for a little bit, and he said, he likes that 7,400 pound weight. He said the class is a whole lot of fun to run, and he says the best thing about it, you don't have to grind them mini rod tires. He says those darn mini rod tires. He says that I was done with that. So he says this is kind of neat that you don't have to go out there and manicure the tires like you do with those mini rods. So there's another proponent of that light modified class that now it gets to the point where you've got the 6,200 pound class with NTPA, and then you got the 74 with the Outlaws ITPA, and it'll be interesting how that all if everybody's gonna. I would imagine the 7,400 pound weight there. The numbers show. You've got variety. We got turbines running out there. You got turbines running Allisons. It's pretty cool to see.
Now, can you get 3 Hemis on at 74?
Not 3 Hemis, only 2 Hemis, and because like Ulmer's run the 3 Chevrolet style.
Okay.
That's right.
That's the only. I'm thinking that's the only 3 engine tractor I've seen run at that particular weight is Ulmer's, and boy, that thing,
sweet pain,
impressive. Yeah, she every time she just gets up and there she goes. It's pretty excited to get to see them in a couple weeks in Lufkin, Texas, with the Outlaw Rules, and then here this weekend. Elizabethtown, Kentucky, just south of Louisville, going to have a shootout here. Chase is working on bringing down, I think he said 7 or 8 tractors. I know Papa Wayne's coming. Chase will have his tag team there. And I know he mentioned some guys from out Illinois. I think Wayne Bunnage was coming back and, guys like that. So, yeah, it should be a pretty interesting show down there with the light modifieds, kind of running more or less an exhibition class down there. So that ought to be pretty cool.
No, this is a dual sanction thing, right? You've got Battle of the Bluegrass and TNT together on the same bill.
Yeah, this is literally, we got talking about it. This has to be the biggest outdoor poll in the state of Kentucky, really, you think about it. And I think I didn't count the classes, but there's got to be six,
There's like
seven. I
say
mean,
14 or 15 I was looking at.
yeah, it
maybe.
was like one side was all Battle of the Bluegrass and the other side was TNT. And then you throw in the mix there with the light mods coming in. So it's probably going to be a long evening in E-Town, but I think it starts 5:00. So 5:00 start time there, and it should be interesting. Right along I-65 is where the fairgrounds is. I've
Just
been by
Saturday
there
or
a few times, and
both nights? Is it just Saturday or both nights?
just Saturday night, 5:00. That gets rolling, but yeah, right.
Dan, who was on the mic with you in Woodbury?
That would have been David Myrick.
Myrick.
Oh, Dave.
Dave
Okay.
Myrick. He's the voice of the Mid-South Pullers.
Yep, I've worked with him before, and
Yep.
have
That was my
enjoyed
first time that I had the chance to work with
chances.
Dave and had a blast with him.
Yep.
We had a good time, and yeah, that was.
I've always enjoyed the stories of Wesley, and you think about, you had mentioned how hard he works as an ambassador for his FFA group, and he does bring them to the farm show each year. When I was doing the road show, I got to visit with him a couple of different times, and one of those years that he actually was a competitor, I felt really bad for him because he came down and dropped the truck off, then turned around and went right back, jumped on a school bus and brought his whole crew down for the FFA deal, rode the school bus all the way back to Woodbury, jumped in his pickup and drove all the way back down. And I think over the course of the time frame, that 5-day span, I think he'd been back and forth from Woodbury, Tennessee to Louisville, Kentucky, and back like 4 or 5 times. And
Wow.
you talk about commitment to being able to do those sorts of things, and ultimately his commitment to the FFA, but also the commitment to the craft, to being able to compete as a selected competitor there with the barbed wire Chevy that year. And I admire them for what they do and their commitment back to the community and to their kids there. So pretty awesome for sure.
Yeah, community support, like I say, was wonderful. I mean, they came out, in bunches out there, and like I say, the competitors as well. And hats off to the Mid-South crew, and had a chance to talk to Richard Wisdent there for a while, and always fun to see. Richard's he's a tech guy with the Mid-South Pullers there, and I've seen him at a couple of the Mid-South pulls over the year here, and always good to kind of talk with him for a little bit and see what's going on. But he ended up running. He was the finish line flagman at this event, and he was, of course, one of the few Alabama fans that were in attendance. Dave kept giving the scores for the Alabama game. Obviously, the Tennessee game earlier, but then he was giving the scores for the Alabama, and there was quite a few fans there from Alabama. And then near the end, there really wasn't. Richard was one of the only ones left. But yeah, no, it was good time. It was a really good time there. And like I say, the light super stock class, we had 13. Larry Phillips came away with the win. Laid down a full pull, and it was almost, I think he was second hook in the class, and he thought that way, and we kind of thought that way as well, like, you might have to add a little weight here to the sled. And they're like, nope, we're going to run them as is, where we're running a full pull line. And just like that, it was, it turned out where Larry was the only one that made a full pull. So it was pretty good, though. It was always good to see the Tennessee tracks down there. Jacob Fuquay was in the field, and you had Dave Esteb came down, Mark Filiatro's Ford was there. Like you say, if you look at the field, it was pretty much a Grand National class. I mean, they had a great Case wasn't there. That was the only, I had to ask David about that. Esseries wasn't there, and he said they had some breakage or something, I think is what he had alluded to there, that they had some breakage on it, because I was like, you always look forward to seeing the Case, but he didn't make it out there. And 2-wheel drive class was Larry Douthit put on a driving school down the right side chalk line there, ran it right down the right side, and took the win pretty much by a big margin. The Mid-South Pullers have Mark Ford with the Tremor truck is in the lead, and he had, I think it was about 8 or 10 point lead over Teasley's truck. And unfortunately, Teasley had some engine damage. I guess that's happened to them quite a few times this summer. So they had some tough luck out there. Teasley's, came up short there, but like I mentioned earlier, Wayne Bunnage took the light modified shootout, and then we had the light limited super stock class, which I've seen quite a few times here, and I've seen them in Ohio, I've seen them in Kentucky, I've seen them pretty much all over the place, and it seems like there's always a different group of light limited supers coming out. And first time I've seen Mark Filiatro's tractor, and boy, did that thing run! That alcohol tractor, that thing ran. And talking to him at the end of the night there, I guess it was kind of down and out for a little bit, is what he was saying, and finally got that back out. So you guys get the chance to see that tractor?
Yeah,
I have seen it.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Before he really got into the light super and he bought the heavy light super stock tractor, I think he had 3 of those light limiteds.
Okay, I knew I thought he had a couple, but I didn't know.
Tougher than nails with him at that point. You'd see him come out and just be, very difficult to get around for sure. So, I think back with that's a newer tractor there that you got to see this weekend. I believe it's out been several years, but still very, very tough runner. And that's a great class. It's just a couple years ago we had that at Fort Recovery, Dan. I think 2 years ago, I guess I got to be on the mic for a light limited super class at Fort. Did you have those this year?
No, they were at saw them at Canton this year. The Region 2 light limited supers.
Yeah.
And that's a whole totally another group too. We're versus the group that runs with Ohio State. Where some of those tractors I remember from, they would come up to Western New York and hear some of the Olivers and Mike Monreal and guys like that. And yeah, it's kind of interesting how everywhere you go, there's a different group of them. So it's, there's quite a few of them out there. And like I say, we got one more event coming up on the Mid-South circuit. I think they end up here in a couple weeks. They got one more show to go. And then Jeremy, where were you this past weekend?
I was in Lebanon, Kentucky at the Marion County Ham Days. And they had a tractor pull with the KTPA Saturday night, and it was a pretty broad swath of classes, maybe the most classes that I've ever witnessed for one single night. They had about 81 hooks for one track, which was pretty significant for them. But it was a great show. They had 12,500 pound hot farm tractors, and that went to a guy called Paul Wilhelm, or a tractor called Back on Track out of Tennessee. They had super modified 2-wheel drives, and they had 3 answering the call. And we talked a little bit about, I showed you guys a picture of this truck. So Ben Robertson is the name of the driver, and he won with this machine called Pandemonium. And he's from Russell Springs, Kentucky, but I had never seen that truck before, and I don't know what it is. It's either a Chevy Love or a Chevy S10 or a Ford Courier, but it's very interesting looking. And he took home the win. David Steff in the old school was second, and Jeffrey Bennett in the Stampede out of Edmonton, Kentucky took home third there. We had a big showing of light limiteds as well. They had 10, and the win went to the Haymaker of Jackson Barger, the Augustin, Kentucky-based youngster who's his dad has been driving, Jamie's been driving tractors and used to drive Supermod 4 or, Pro Stock 4-wheel drive trucks for a while as well. So they're still out and doing things. We had super modified 4-wheel drives as well. 4 of them answered the call, and the win there went to Dylan Clem and the Radical XL machine that they've kind of built to just have fun away from the national circuits, stick a blower on the big block Chevrolet and roll with it. Riley Funkhauser was second and doing it in the dirt, and then Nathan Sewell with the Valley Shaker was third, and then his other truck, Blackjack, was fourth there. Then we had our hot stock 2-wheelers that was won by a guy called Dennis Strasburger out of beautiful 1968 Chevrolet that he brought, and then we had a couple of street diesel classes, and I think that's about it. But yeah, it was a fun evening, great night for a pull. Just beautiful, not too hot, not too cool. And they had a pretty nice crowd, but yeah, it was That's a nice little venue. The fairgrounds has got a wonderful pulling track, and they also have a horse track there. So they run trotter horses as well. But yeah, so that I have one more to go with the KTPA. I think their last one is the weekend of the 11th of October. So not this coming weekend, but the following weekend they have the Fall Brawl there in Temple Hill, Kentucky, just outside of Glasgow. So that'll be barring anything unforeseen. That should be my last one for a while, unless other ones pop up between now and the wintertime. But
speaking of Glasgow, pretty significant debut this weekend, fellas, in Ohio.
We should talk about that. Absolutely.
Yes.
The songs are back in the dragster tractor ranks.
Yes.
We knew it was coming, and it was just a matter of time until it was all out there. But their new tractor is out, and they did long motorsports things. Went out and made a 400-foot pass, I think it was, with their brand new 4-engine setup, and
nice debut, huh?
Yeah. Anxious to see what 2025 means or 2026 means for them, and sort of where their intentions would be if they commit to run a full Champions Tour, or where they're going to go. And guys, as I was out the other day, I got to thinking, with all of these different classes and the modified divisions that we're seeing, and the competitiveness and the levels of competitiveness that we're seeing, I wonder how many tractors will apply for Louisville, and how really challenging it's going to be to cut that group to 12, because nearly all of these guys that are running in that 2-engine class will mount a third if they want. You have tractors like this one of Ricky's. You potentially have one sitting in Illinois that hasn't been put together yet, or hasn't been out yet, that will be out next year for a modified class, I'm assuming. There's a whole stack of tractors, and as I started to play in my mind with the ones that are already going to apply based off of just historical data that we might put together, I really do think this will be a year where there's maybe more than 20.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, I thought Mike had mentioned last year that the mod numbers were pretty strong, as far as like more than they have seen in the last, how many years. And, so I would not want that job. No, that would be a tough call there, because like you said, everybody.
I know this will never happen, but how cool would it be to see light mods at Louisville?
I genuinely believe that is a realistic thought process. If, and that's a big if there were enough modified tractors to fill a mod class, I could see light mod coming in on a Saturday afternoon and having their own deal, but not a final.
Yeah.
I
really,
you
think
that.
So? You think that's?
I think so.
I'd love to see that.
I'd love to see 2 mod classes again, but I don't know when the time comes when the insurance company says, hey, I don't want these 4-engine tractors running inside anymore. I don't know if that's a realistic, who knows, but
there's a lot of questions about that, though. Like you start to look at, what's the pro stock division going to look like in time, with the growth of the 5.0. I don't think we'll have any trouble whatsoever finding 48 tractors this year. It seems like we have grown in the pro stock game and the big game, all the while the 5.0 is growing. So I think that next question then leaves you to the idea of the super farm class, and sort of what happens there. And what does that mean? Does that mean, there's been a lot of discussion about super farm, and even towards the end of this points season, there was some discussion about, do the super farm tractors have a point series on the national level next year, and what does that look like? And I think the competitors in the super farm division warrant that opportunity.
Yeah.
I just feel like, you also can't have 6 or 7 diesel single turbo classes that warrant having a points race on the national circuit either. And so you start to look at it and it's like, okay, well, you've got Super Farm. What about Limited Pro? What about 5.0? What about Light Pro? What about, Pro Stock?
Right.
Where do you go with all these?
Light limited.
And it's there's a lot there. And so I don't envy a promoter. I don't envy the sanctioning body for having to be able to decide what's right and wrong and indifferent and how to set it all up. But I would love feedback from folks that are watching as to where they feel like that sort of vision is going to go, and where does that mean for a year, 2, 3 years down the road. Because I do know, like for instance with the ITPA, if you go and you look at some of their results from the 5.0 class, they had a pretty solid 5.0 Pro Stock tractor class.
Yes.
And you look at the guys who were running with Outlaws, and you look at what happened in the some of the other divisional areas with what they had. But like you talked about Chris Kane, he ran the full ITPA tilt this summer with his tractor.
Yeah, they put on quite a few miles, going across, trying to. But one thing that is interesting too is like with Region 2, it really hasn't taken off in the last couple of years like people thought it would have. You look at, the Outlaw group has got a pretty solid group of 5.0 tractors. The ITPA, you said, they've got the same thing, but it just Region 2, for some reason, it just doesn't seem to be, picking up at the pace that I think that they would like it to.
Well, and I think you also you have guys like Mr. Lawyer and Hayden, who had 2 tractors and were doing a little 5.0 pulling, who have gone ahead and made the executive decision to, put the big turbo on and go and run in the big Pro Stock class. And so that, does that mean that several others would start to do that as well? Is that 5.0 class more of a transitional class? And, or is it going to be a mainstay type class? That's yet to be decided in terms of what comes our way and where we'll go with it. But it's really been, I haven't seen it a lot, but I've enjoyed watching the results and being able to watch some of the streams of it myself, and follow it along. And there's been some really, really competitive guys out there in the game doing it.
Yeah, and some interesting, like you say, some interesting competitors that have, found their way into the class. And, I always look forward to seeing when I don't get to see them a whole lot, but when run with the Outlaws, the group that runs with the Outlaws are the 5.0 pros, and they always put on a great show. And,
Well, Parker, he's been the guy, like, so, we'll go back.
You go back, right.
I'm going to go back a really long way here from my pulling announcing career. Like, when I started in 06 and 07, he was running Pro Stock with the Outlaws.
Yep.
And leaving Ohio and making his way for full points runs, or at least as many hooks as he could. The beauty of what Doug Roberts sort of designed at that time was if you didn't want to go and run a full points race, you could get involved in his sweeps. And so there was what he referred to as the Western sweep. There was a state fair sweep, which that state fair sweep was 4 state fairs that were all in general proximity and all in general time frame. So you could go run a point series within a point series, similar to the Hot Shot Secret or Pennzoil Cup, Shell Rotella Cup, all the things that we've had on the Grand National side for themselves. But there were about 3 different ones that you could hit with the Outlaws. And so, I remember, Parker coming out and running as hard as he did with 2 tractors for several years when I was with the Outlaws in my early infancy stages of really getting going announcing.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing with the Outlaws, as far as like with that 5.0 Pro Stock, was longevity. I mean, they were running, 20 hooks, 20 some hooks, and you needed vehicles to go to the pulls. And, that's the way they had to get there. And
as hard as they ran and for the way that their summers were, they had to have longevity, and they had to have something that was sustainable, and, go back to the drawing board and write it all out and put your pieces together to make it work. And then you have all these adaptations of how it was working, and it made significant difference for their numbers. You're sitting face to face with with the promoter at the state fair convention, and you're trying to promise them that they're going to have, 6 classes, and your estimated show length's going to be X amount of hours, and yada yada yada, so they can tabulate concession sales and beer sales and all of those sorts of things. And then you show up and you only got 2 pro stocks. Well, you've kind of left yourself a little bit of a pickle there. So they got ahead of that curve for sure, and made some pretty fantastic decisions to get that progress where they wanted to, and have their growth in the numbers that they have. And they've got a tremendous following. So, and I think we're seeing that, like I said, with the ITPA and with some of these other folks and their organizations, to find great groups of people who are willing to come and commit and run for decent money, not as far away from home, and not have to have that big investment and the potential that, they're going to break, which I can't say that's not possible. When you watch a super farm and you watch a 401 tractor do what they've done here in the last month, a 5.0 is very capable of doing that as well.
Right.
Oh yeah. But, I'll put on a great show. You throw the light pros in there as well. I've seen that class at, different venues throughout the summer, and, same thing. They put on a great show, but like you say, what is the direction the single charger class goes,
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I was impressed this summer with the hot farm class. Like everywhere I went where there were hot farms, those classes were really, really fun. And they
more
were
than 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But they were all within a couple or 3 feet of one another mostly, and very, very competitive and very fun to watch.
Yeah, that class with PPL this summer, I had the live stream for Evansville, the live stream for Lanesville. I announced at Shide, and every one of those hooks we had over 20.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is some of the ones that that you can always count on and expect to be there weren't there. So, we can have more. Even there could be 25 to 30 coming in that time frame. And then there's some neat storylines. I think if I were to go back and really circle one of the things that made me most excited over the course of 2025, it's probably Brody Typin.
Absolutely.
And the Nightlife tractor coming back out. And but other than that, they also have the international tractor that Phil put together that, Aaron did all the driving there for several years. It's out running as well in that same hot farm class with somebody who, was right there from their home area in the neck of their woods. And I just think that, for me, it's really easy to get excited about just everything. Pulling's pulling. And I love that. The simplicity of it hasn't really changed. There are aspects of it that we try to complicate too much. But at the end of the day, just going to an event and having a good time and watching the pull is still, it still trips my trigger. There's no question about it.
Why you do it, for sure.
You're right. One thing that I always find interesting, like, okay, so now, the hot farm class now is, I guess you would call it what would you call that? Like the Indiana hot farm class is more or less where it's located. You go out east and it's
fair.
Totally different, group of hot, what is a hot farm? But,
Yep.
but like the Indiana hot farms, was it 510 is the rule they run around here with the hot farms? I believe it's 510.
Yeah. There are a few guys from Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. Jordan Harris and guys like
the majority of them were from Indiana. And
yeah, I'd say just this general, you draw a circle or whatever. But what's interesting
100-mile radius.
Yeah, how you find, how numbers fluctuate. Let's go back 25 years when Super Farm, and, the years we had 75, 76 tractors at Bowling Green.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, okay, then Limited Pro came in and kind of took them, a lot of them guys jumped over into Limited Pro, and then numbers in Limited Pro went crazy there for a bit. And it just to me, it's interesting when you look through the years at just how, what's the hot class this year, and right now it seems like, the hot farm class around here is, for a lot of the younger pullers, and that's what everybody says, what's that next generation coming up? And it seems like there's quite a few of the younger pullers in that hot farm class.
Well, and I think, and again, I know it's kind of it's kind of silly to say cost effectiveness in this, in this day and age, but from a overall cost perspective, if you're going to run a tractor and you want to run a tractor, one that you can run closer to home, you're going to spend less than you would if you have a turnkey pro stocker or even a super farm. So I think that yes, but it goes back to the thing that you guys were talking about. How many single charger classes do you need, and does one feed into the other? Like for example, on the truck side of things, 2.6, 3.30, 3.6, and then you go to super stock. What do you do in the tractor range? It's like the stair steps are unlimited. You could go any direction. But I feel like there are some cases like the Typins where you've got this tractor. It was a great tractor in its heyday, and then you bring it back in a different sort of a vein, and you go out and have a lot of fun, and it's not as about as spending money and being on the top of the pile and being on the national side, but just enjoying the sport again and getting out and doing that. And I think lots of the hot farm drivers are doing that. I think about people like not only the Typins, but the Ohio guys that we weren't really talking about. There's a bunch of contingent of a little pocket of hot farmers from Ohio that run with the Indiana guys. And I think, it's, I don't know, the sky's the limit, I think, but I think you'll see people building those too. People jumping up from maybe other classes to go more hot farm pulling next year.
So let me throw this at you guys for, the rumor that the super farms will be replaced with the limited pro tractors. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess the question is, and this is where I really rely on it, like the natural progression from super farm was to 4.1.
Right.
Is the natural progression from super farm to 4.1 and then from 4.1 to a 5.0? If that's the progression, we've already seen some of these guys who are running 4.1 strap the 5.0 on and go. So I don't know. I mean, we still have tremendous numbers in limited pro. There's a lot of those tractors out there, and they continue to be very competitive.
But let me throw this at you, Miles. But as far as so we saw like in super farm, Michigan, Wisconsin were your big states, were the super farms, and basically everybody else is kind of there's a couple here or there, but now with like limited pros here in the Midwest, you don't see a lot of 4.1s, but Missouri, Wisconsin, Badger State, I mean they're huge out there. Like we saw up at Farley this year. I mean they filled up that 50 spots no problem. But if you look at the entry for them, it's there's a lot of Missouri. There's a lot of Wisconsin, a lot of Minnesota up that way. Is it enough that, you're going to have, if you're going to run a Grand National class more in the Midwest, where a lot of the events are you going to be able to get the pullers to come? That's where you kind of look
at it. I agree with that. And I think what you're saying is like, you look at this, if you look at Grand National right now and you study it out, on the super farm side, Michigan is the state for what's happening there. Don't get me wrong. There's a guy from Illinois who's been a big thorn in everybody's tushy. Right. There's a guy from Wisconsin who's been a big thorn in everybody's tushy on the NTPA Grand National side. But for the most part, there's a guy even from Tennessee that comes up and runs Grand National that has been a thorn. But for the most part, the numbers, the sheer competitor numbers are coming from Michigan. On the PPL side, those numbers are coming from Wisconsin,
right?
And so I do think there's a lot. Now the Badger State would change that a little bit because there is a good following of 4.1 tractors there. There's a great group of light pro stock tractors out of Wisconsin,
right?
Just sickening good group of tractors from the light pro side out there. But it does raise a lot of questions. Like one of the things I was going to say as well is like from the hot farm side, like I don't understand rules well enough. I don't have the knowledge Charles does and that you do sometimes, Dan, with this stuff. But like Mike Palmer, he was at Scheid and ran hot farm with the Red Avenger tractor.
Yep.
Well, that's a tractor that has run in so many different divisions.
That's a different tractor, though. The hot farm is different than the light pro.
There's two.
And because I had talked to him, I had talked to Mike, I think it was at the Enderley, and he was telling me for the first time he actually he took the hot farm apart. He says something happened. He says that for the most part it's been he had to I forget what it was, but he had to. He says, I was curious about something, so I took something apart. And he says, this thing is so new to me, I don't know really much about it, but it's ran so good. And but yeah, that
answers that question. I was like,
eventually
how
for the
does he
sun.
come here and run these points and then go run these points and then go run these points? Like it doesn't, but that makes sense to have multiple tractors and be in different classes there. And that's one of those things, like when we used to go to Gordyville, that made my head spin because
they run
it's like, hey, we're running the 9,000 class, and the same tractors that just ran the 85 would come out there, and then we're running the 93 class, and here comes the same tractors that just ran the 9.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Well, and I guess my question, and again, we're talking about rules, and I'm not as savvy as some others, but is it safe to assume that if Super Farm is going by the way eventually, and 4-1 is the answer, that we're going to have to do something about intercoolers? Because some can and some can't, right? Like right now, PPL allows intercoolers.
NTPA does not run an intercooler.
NTPA does not.
PPL does.
Okay.
Yep. And there is some discussion, I'm sure, that they have to. I mean, I guess that's another aspect of it that people have been able to do. Like you can watch somebody who can immediately switch and run from one to the other. And it takes some time to change the setup, but not an overabundance of time. So a guy like Jeremy Roberts can run his PPL setup and then jump in, and if he wants to run it Bowling Green or something along those lines, he can go do so, and it doesn't seem to affect his performance whatsoever. He can be competitive at either one of those games. I think there's a lot of discussion points on that, guys, and as you start to get into it, I mean, it really kind of comes down to a few things. That's another question I would love to pose, and if people are watching, I want them to be able to share those things. If you're a promoter and you put your promoter's hat on from, and if you had the opportunity to put your show on, what classes are you inviting? Let's say we're going to have a four class event. What's your variety look like, and how are you going to arrange it? I think we'd find that there's just a really, really mixed bag of how people want to choose to put on their event. And so I think it comes down to a couple things. Like for me, are you measuring off of quantity first? How many vehicles do you want to have? If you want to have more vehicles, well, then you're going to want to steer towards one of those classes that has more vehicles. If you want to have, the ones that you see on TV, well, then that's going to change things just a little bit as well, and we're going to have to do that as well. And everybody wants to bring the big guys to their town, but they also have to have a thought process on, putting on a show and what's the best way to do that. For me right now, I totally agree on this discussion point. I'd have no problem bringing Hot Farm class to my show.
Yeah, no, I agree.
What would your 4 be if you had to pick?
Well, I think there's a lot of variance to that. I have no problem in telling you that I think I would start with a Hot Farm class. Yep. And then I think I'd have a mini rod class, and I think I'd have a 2-wheel drive class. And right off the bat, I've just named 3 classes that are probably, if I'm doing my job and I pick a date properly, I might have 20 of each of those. Yeah. That gives me 60 hooks in those 3, and it gives me 2 classes that are on the national scene, and it gives me 1 that might let me have a local hero or 2 or 3 at my event that get to come, that are going to bring a good crowd and a trailer full of people to come and watch. Right. Then on that 4th one, I'll be honest with you, it really comes down to personal preferences on the things that you like. I like a mod class. I like the light mod class. I'll be honest with you again, I think one of my favorite classes over the last several years has become that light super stock class. I think they put on a heck of a show. I think the wheel speed and what they do is one that makes me want to circle and potentially be there. Sure. I think in 2 years' time, if the if the super stock diesel class continues to grow like it is on the tractor side, that might be one I wanted. And I also think right now there's an overabundance of super stock diesel 4x4 trucks that are everywhere. And because of that, I think I might gravitate there because they have a tremendous following of people who want to see them. There's a big event this coming weekend out at Weeklands, and I've seen all kinds of fantastic promotion for it. I hope that people come and watch it. Last year when I was looking for some support for the road show last minute, trying to see if we could pull that off, Weaklands came on board and were immediately willing to help me. And if I could have pulled it all together and finished it all up and got everything contractually done, we'd have promoted like crazy the Weakland event that's coming up here this weekend. So from what I've seen, they're going to have an awesome Superstock diesel truck class. I'm pretty sure, based off of what I saw as well, Colin might be going there.
Yeah, I thought Colin was going to run the combo class. Now there's an interesting class that runs out east.
Yeah. Yeah, out there on the full pull deal where you can run a pro stock and a super stock together, and I guess that's just the beauty of it. At the end of the day, if you like pulling, at the end of the day, if you have a desire, you can go. And if you want to go watch a pull, you can. You want to be a competitor, well, buddy, you can. And I just like that. I like that a lot. I think as we get deeper in this, like I said, I think sometimes we're making things way too complicated by trying to do too much, and we're trying to overcomplicate what's really been a quite simple approach to things. Put the pull on, let the fans come enjoy themselves, be safe, have a good time, be done with it.
Now, Miles, I'm going to be the devil's advocate with you as the promoter.
Sure.
So you want these certain classes, okay, but now, like you say, as far as availability goes, now I know PPL has always gone with the, for each class, they've kind of had a number where they want each class to run every year. And really, I don't know if NTPA is really, because the pro stocks, I think on the NTPA side, they run the most, I think, out of all the classes, them and the diesel supers. I think I didn't look at numbers, as far as how many they had this year, but it's usually those two classes are the biggest. So one of your classes, say for instance, the mini rod class, okay, they've got too many hooks, you can't have those.
Yep.
So where do you go with something else, or do you just say, well, that, we'll just won't run another class and go that route?
No, there's a, let me explain something to you here on what I think. I think that you have got to find, as a promoter, you have to find the perfect fit for you. But I also think there's got to be some thought process on what's coming in from the sanctioning body. And one of the things I think I know the most of right now is, if you want to secure your top level classes, have multiple days for your event.
Without question.
Yep.
Don't just have a single day hook. Nobody on that national circuit is going to want to drive all across the country to hook one time.
Unless you're paying a lot.
Unless you can justify it somehow. But, I've talked to multiple pullers over the course of the last few months.
Yes.
And that conversation that I've had has been, these events that we go compete at, they're also a vacation. We're taking time away from work and we're driving to set event. When we get to that event, we want to establish our camp. We want to be able to set everything up. We want to be home for 3 days or however many days, and we want to load up then and head back home. We don't want to unload everything, set everything up, and 12 hours later load everything up and head back home. And so I say this as a challenging scenario because I find it, and I'm not a member of a sanctioning body staff. I'm not here telling you that this is the end all be all. I'm just telling you, you want to draw your best competitors. You want your event to grow. I think that's one of the very first ways to do it is offer them an opportunity to compete twice while they're there.
Absolutely.
And if you do that, it will help.
And I think you're going to see a lot of others eventually go, if they can, to a 3-day format. Like, you have at Toma or you have at Bowling Green. If you're going to see them grow, they're going to bring it in on a Thursday night and run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and double sessions on Saturday. I think once they start doing that and they can then get more classes to those venues, you're going to have multiple super nationals. I think that day is coming.
But I think that's the question that has to be asked, Dan, is so let's say I'm having that conversation. Hey, I want your mini rod class. I got to have your mini rod class. Well, the first thing they say,
you can't have them. Yeah.
You're going to have 2 days or you're going to have one?
Right.
Well, I'm going to have 2. Okay. Then I need to have a discussion with these other places that are only going to have 1. And I realize that especially on the NTPA side, and maybe even still on the PPL side, there's a lot of single day events still that have a great following. The Napoleons and the Wasions, the Goshens, which now Goshen's a 2 for some of those classes.
Right.
Evansville, I think Evansville could very much stand to do so. But the downside, you think about it, is, and this is the trueness of how it works. Your fair only lasts so many days, and you have folks that want to watch a brush pull. You have want to have a demo derby. You have folks that want to have a concert. You have folks that want to have the ATVs come and so on and so forth. And so you're going to fill your fairgrounds with different stuff. The sad thing is outside of the concert, pulling's probably the next most expensive tab for your fair.
True.
So if you want to have a good return on that and justify the expense, you better bring your good classes and we better fill those seats. If we didn't, then it's hard to justify the fair spending the money when they can have a demo derby, pay $1,500 to the winner, and have everybody and their brother there drinking and having a good time watching their friends destroy some old cars.
Right. Or bring in a monster truck show or something like that, where you don't have the maintenance, you don't have everything that goes along with that, building a track. I mean,
I agree.
That,
So I think for me, I think the key to that is let's have 2 days, let's have 2 opportunities for our pullers to be there. And if that happens, then maybe you've got a shot to get the classes that you want. I also think, let's be wise when you select your date. Don't select it on top of Chapel Hill or Bowling Green or one of these others. Now, this is where the problem lies. A guy who's a member of a fair board, he doesn't have the ability to walk into the fair and say, okay, we're going to move our week, because now you're changing everything. You've got all these guys that are over here on this side with the 4-H side of the deal that have to get animals in and out and have to have space ready for all of that. Because, we all oftentimes forget about the fact that at a lot of these places we go, like when I rolled into Henry, Illinois this year, there was a sheep show happening at that fairgrounds at the exact same time the tractor pull was happening. I've never seen that before, but I'm telling you that every place we go, with the exception of a few, has other activities that are occurring at that location, unless it's a standalone place like a Farley or a Bowling Green or something like that. Toma. The Toma has a big fair the next, a week that either precedes it or right before, right after, something like that. So that's a whole nother discussion point. And I think we're on a path where we could have a lot of discussion. We're nearing our hour here, and I think we've got to have some breaking news discussion from Dan's dirt pile that we've got to talk a little bit about, and then maybe we'll wrap this thing up.
Well, guys, we had talked about the pro stock class, and how the class is just that was the big discussion a couple of years ago. Was we had there wasn't enough tractors to get in, to fill the 48 at Louisville, and all of a sudden everybody starts talking, oh, this class, this is it, this is that. Well, now it's gotten to the point where, and really, I think, I've heard some rumors of some other tractors being built where I think you're seeing the resurgence of the pro stock class to, I haven't done I will get the numbers for you as far as what they averaged this year on the NTPA side. I mean, I'd say probably some of their best numbers they've had in
hands down
probably 10, 15 years.
Oh, without question.
Yep.
Obviously, like I said, this year the PPL side of things were down a little bit, but I'd look for that to bounce right back. Next year, within the next couple of years, they'll be back up to where they, normally been, because a lot of the competitors that normally run that weren't running. So, when they come back, but like I say, I think the pro stock class on the whole is it's exciting times, I would have to say. I mean, and speaking of breaking news, Mark Mangan, 2-time 4-wheel drive NTPA champion, has purchased a Loud and Heavy X.
Good Hugh, Minnesota
Family. Yep. And it's like, how cool is that? I mean, awesome. when you think about people, you see the progression of going from super farm limited pro to pro, but I mean, from 4-wheel drive to pro, that's pretty cool.
It is. I'll give some feathers to RJ Simon. I think that RJ Simon and Jason Round and that group of guys that have invested into pro stock, bought pro stocks, come out and proven you can run pro stocks and win with pro stocks has kind of given people an extra incentive to look at it and say, okay, maybe this is something. Because Simons aren't people that knew about pro stock tractors. They're not somebody that ran diesels. And, Brad Wacob and their staff, they've now won 3 Grand National titles consecutively, with that group of folks between Brent Myers Tractors and the Simon family kind of all in England, the Lincoln Diesel specialty folk.
Yep.
So I'll give RJ some serious kudos there, because I think it's not for sale, or it's for sale, but it's not on sale mentality has sold some tractors and gotten them into some people's hands that have allowed for this class to see some growth there. And then I also think that, big pulls, good pulls, awesome competition. There's just something about a pro stock tractor class that and now, because of the competitive level that we're seeing, you might go to a Bowling Green and there might be 55 of them, and 45 of them might win the darn thing.
Right.
I mean, it's it's legitimate. So major kudos to the guys behind the scenes in this pro stock class and making it grow. I think it's one of the 3 that I would circle and say, oh my goodness, look at this. I mean, mini rod, super stock, diesel 4x4, pro stock, then next probably light super maybe. But it's awesome to see the numbers coming up, and I do hope, like you said, I do hope from the sake of competitors for the pro pulling side, I hope that we can get 10 to 12 to 15 of them that are over there running on the full tilt and have them out for the summer in 2026 and make some sense of that. And I think there's enough. I think there's enough to come run PPL. I think there's enough to run NTPA.
Oh, absolutely.
And have a great class of competition. And then maybe one weekend in August, we'll bring them all together and start seeing who can do it. But yeah, I love it. And kudos to Mark Mangan. I can't wait to see. Now, I guess, is that his toy? Or is Anna?
Well, that's yet to be seen. Is this going to be? Are the girls going to get involved with it, or is this going to be Mark's? Going back to that pro stock deal. I mean, just think about it. This year, Craig Wildman, Lance Little, the winner's circle. It just guys that have run this class for years. Come on back with a little bit of regularity. And here they are in the winner's circle.
I mean, I think Wilkie's have another tractor potentially coming.
Yep.
I know Barbie just finished up another tractor that's supposed to be making its way out trackside soon. And so let's build a pro stock. Let's go. Let's get it all together and let's have some fun. Everybody build a pro stock and we'll go have a good time.
Of course, now everybody's gunning for the Mac Nasty and Mac Daddy now that, we got 5 in a row here. So, that already starts the season off with, everybody's going to be gunning for them tractors. Whatever in the world they found something.
Well, yeah, Carlton and James and Mike and that whole group of folks from Ohio stumbled upon something, and
yes, they did.
We'll see if they bring it to Louisville.
If you're the Connies, do you just let James stay on those tractors? I'd be like, you have at it. Whatever you're
a hard deal to sell it if you're going to try to take him off of it, because that dude's got the golden ball right now.
But no, that was a great discussion tonight. Like I say, we want to hear from you folks as well. And
we really do want to make it collaborative.
Yes.
So please comment, please share, please give us your feedback in terms of discussion points. What are your 4 classes? And how would you go about it? And how would you look at this diesel these diesel classes and how do we progress with them? Because the reality of it is I do believe there's a place for everybody to pull. I think that there is a place for everybody to pull. And the sad thing is when you start talking about cancellation and you start talking about getting rid of that sends the vibe to somebody that it's the wrong place to go. And I don't like that either. So,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a reminder, this weekend, Full Pull Live, all kinds of pulling going on. I think there's 4 events on Saturday this week. First time. It's almost like midsummer. It almost is. We got Weeklands on Friday and Saturday. Elizabethtown will be Saturday night. Got Boonville, North Carolina. That's happening. Crossville, Tennessee is Friday and Saturday night as well. I think that's the mid Tennessee organization down there that does that event. And then Monday night is Lancaster, Ohio, the final Region 2 event. for NTPA. So lots of pulling this weekend. If you're out and about, make sure you get to one of these pulls. If not, check them out on Full Pull Live. We're going to bring them to you. It's going to be a busy weekend, all kinds of things happening. So, guys, just when you think that everything's kind of winding down, you got some of these big end of season shows, like you say, the Weeklands event up there in the hills are going to be making their campfires and up on the hill there. And what a cool venue. You've seen some of the videos from that over the years, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
But that'll conclude it for episode 29. Thanks for watching here tonight, and we'll see y'all next week.